So in this first video of the series, we'll look more deeply at how brands connect to audiences and why keeping a clear focus on knowing your audience is essential. Every organisation at its heart, there is this deep need to answer these three related questions. The first one really is, whom is it that you're actually trying to influence? The second one is, how do you deliver on a particular promise that your company offers that audience? And then thirdly, how do you build this ongoing relationship of trust? At the heart of your organisation or the organisations that you serve as agencies are those really important questions. Also conversely, at the centre of this question is how you as an organisation can understand the human problem behind the business challenges that you face. For example, when you think about a company losing market share, the problems that poses for that particular company might kind of be addressed initially financially, so it might hit you in sort of dollar signs or pound signs or whatever your currency is. But the problem really lies in understanding and engaging the audiences that are maybe looking to a competitor of yours to find a solution to their problems. So basically, I really want to share with you a framework that I've found useful actually in the past. I've adapted it slightly from a gentleman called Jason Oakes framework, which is a little bit simpler, but I feel like there's a few more steps that can help direct us in this conversation. And what I'd like to do really is just give you an overview of the kind of main structure. So you're going to see that there's sort of 6 or 7 main steps. But when I look at this first step around business challenges and sort of defining what the business challenges that you're looking to solve, you're going to see just a number of different bullet points that I want to share with you that hopefully maybe spark some thoughts around whether or not those challenges are relevant to you. So for example, when we kick this one off, we're gonna just look at the first challenge, or the first category of challenges. And the first one really is how it relates to market. So how does your brand relate to the specific market that you're in? And what are the particular challenges that there might well be within that for you? So as mentioned, I'm just gonna hit on some of these. Is your competition winning, for example? Are you acting like a commodity? So you don't have any brand value which sort of capitalizes your value to your audience in a clear way. Are you losing market share? Is there a competitor that's sort of beating you? Are you able to, or have you changed? Or are you struggling to change to an evolving market? So that's the first one. But what about communications challenges? So does your visual brand line up to your actual organisation, or is it looking a little bit passé? Are you therefore becoming irrelevant in that sense? What about your message? Is it clear? Do people understand what it is that you're saying? What about you going through some sort of transformative change, for example, and does your communication really support that? What about launching a new product as well? Maybe that's a challenge that you need to think through, which is a positive one, but it's still a challenge. And then what about internal challenges, cultural challenges? Are you getting alignment within your team? Are you attracting or retaining talent? Are you actually getting the best out of your team? Do they really see the value in you getting a clear understanding from your audiences internally about the value that you offer? What about efficiency? Do you have operational alignment? Are you being efficient with your resources? Do you feel like you can provide a better customer experience? How are you doing on managing multiple brands? Maybe that's you, maybe you're trying to juggle that. It's not an exhaustive list, but there are a couple of business challenges that you may well be facing that actually could have a solution, or I would almost certainly say have some sort of solution with brand. And the next question is really, in this framework, who are the audiences that can solve this challenge for you? This is the second step within the framework that I want to just address with you. So who is your audience? How do you gain clarity about the people that you're looking to engage? If you don't have clarity about the precise audiences, then really the truth is that your efforts are going to miss the target and your resources will be lost. And that will be a real shame both for you and the people that you serve as well. It really all starts with defining your audiences. Once your audiences have been defined, you're in a much stronger position to know how to talk to them. Unless you've got that definition, how do you know how to relate to them? And then you can help your organisation solve the business challenges that we've just talked about with real clarity. Now, this is what this series is really going to address. How do we define those audiences in the first instance, and then what do we do with them? How do we communicate with them? What are the conditions is the third step that are going to enable these challenges to exist. Okay, so this is the third step in the framework. Your challenge can exist for several reasons, and it's worth thinking about this in the context of 4 key areas. Sorry to introduce another framework to you, but one of the key frameworks that I use is one called the 4 C's. It's a research framework that enables you really to categorize and clarify the challenges that you face as an organization based around 4 key metrics. So once you've understand the data related to those particular 4 C's, it's really a lot more straightforward to then create insights, because these 4 C's really overlap. And at the overlap between the different points and the different types of content, you can really understand with a lot more clarity the dynamics around how that challenge came to be, what it is that you should be doing, and how then you should really address it. So the 4 C's are firstly customer, the second one is competitor, the third one category, and the fourth one is company. So what you'll need to do is understand the reasons why these problems exist by researching why the problem exists in these 4 areas, and then gather insights that then help to inform a strategy as to how you're going to address the challenge. So for example, by diving into competitive data, you might be able to identify a competitive threat that you hadn't seen before. Maybe by looking into the audience data, you'll be able to better understand their needs in a way that maybe you weren't meeting. Maybe there's a key insight that you've overlooked, and actually by talking to your customers, by researching them, by speaking to them, you're really going to gather what that insight is and things that maybe you haven't considered before. So, but what about the category data? By diving into that, you might find that there's something meaningful going on in the market, such as a sort of a technological advance that's maybe changed the dynamics and disrupted the industry that you're working within. And unless you understand that and know then for how to respond, it can remain forever a challenge that you don't address. So what about the company area of the 4 C's? So it might be something about your company, maybe something in your history that maybe you haven't taken advantage of, some beautiful part of your origin story that might really help connect with the audiences, which might need to be unveiled. Then you also need to kind of see if there's any negative things in your history that are causing negative perceptions around your particular brand. So knowing those things, as you can kind of see, is crucial, but the overlap of all of those 4 areas means that you're in a much stronger place to know how to address your audience in a way that can really change their beliefs and actions, and essentially define and help resolve perceptual issues that are at the core of the challenges that you face. Then the next step really is, once you've done the research and you've kind of understand why those challenges exist, then you're in a place to really look at how to change those beliefs and actions. So the next step is really to understand what needs to be done with that particular audience to help move them forward and point them in a direction that is preferable towards you, that changes potential negative brand perceptions and creates new ones that support their relationship with you in a much healthier way. So let's look at a visual brand refresh perspective. That might be a helpful way for us just to anchor this kind of theoretical conversation a little bit. We might look at the entire identity system of your organisation, for example, to try to resolve what might be a challenge of irrelevance. Another potential action might be to do a campaign that create awareness or promote the brand in a particular message. Maybe there was something that was unveiled in the origin story piece when we dove into your company history that wasn't really coming to life in a way that it needed to create those sort of positive associations with your brand. So how you will respond, what action you will take as a result of this new data, this new research and these new insights around your audiences will affect how you then respond, right? So in light of this, it's really worth highlighting that when people think about a rebrand or a rebranding process, or even brand strategy, many instantly go to revised identity when the brand's problem may be way more nuanced, okay? And so unless you kind of understand exactly why you need to act in a certain way by doing your research and unveiling the insights that are causing the challenge that you're facing, you're going to get stuck and potentially lose a lot of resource and misdirect the company internally and externally. And maybe even at best have a nice visual experience and an updated user experience which could support growth, but it doesn't solve the core problem. And this is where brands at times fail. We need to find out what we actually need to facilitate in terms of an audience experience that could solve the problem. So now we've sort of addressed the challenge and we've looked at building out a strategy, and we've also looked at creating an experience for that particular audience that resolves the challenge that we found through that framework. What do we do to optimize? How do we make sure that we're living in an agile sort of world and building a brand that actually is flexible and responsive to how things change? Maybe the strategy is correct, but the execution is wrong. We need to build in a framework and an expectation for adaptation and flexibility as we go to market and we start talking to audiences. One of the things that brands and agencies often do when they go through a sort of a rebrand, for example, or some sort of expression work, is that there's very little sort of optimizational opportunities or clarity around whether or not the sort of initial challenge that needed to be addressed really has been addressed in the way that it needs to. So the science behind this work needs that sort of level of flexibility to be able to adapt and change as you go out with a hypothesis, you create an experience, you see what the response is, then you can adapt. And so without having a clear framework at the beginning of a project to assess what success looks like and how you're going to, at the back end, measure the outcome of that success based upon the data that we find, you'll essentially really fall more into the dark art than it really is necessary. There is a sort of an in-betweeny sort of stage that we can afford and we can look to implement, and is important when we think about how we, usefully use our resources well in connecting with audiences. So as mentioned, there's always been this tension, as we know, between creativity and data and strategy, and they really should work in symbiotic relationships. There is no sort of answer to the fact that this is a bit of a dark art in many ways, because people are a bit of a dark art, and connecting with audiences is always a challenge. But I hope today has brought a little bit of clarity for you personally and for your organisation, whether you're an agency looking to develop your strategy skills, or if you're a brand manager looking to create better experiences for your customers, so that you can improve market share, solve some of those challenges that we looked at. I really hope this has been useful. If you're interested in kind of the framework that I introduced, I'll stick a document just down below here. Just click on that and it will send you to a location where I can get that sent straight to you, so that you can maybe even play around with it yourself. If you've got any questions, do pop them in the comments below, and I'd love to jump on those as well, and hopefully answer anything that's kind of come out of this. So please join me next week, where we'll be looking more into this subject, this really valuable subject of understanding audiences, and continue the conversation. Thank you.